Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about virtual interviews, in particular medical school interviews, but I think that these tips are probably applicable to any virtual interviews that you've got. My medical school interviews were not virtual, they were in person, but I have done my fair share of virtual interviews in the past, when I was interviewing for the camp that I worked at in America, when I was doing my internship in Canada. This just sounds like a CV, but it's not, I swear. In the last couple of weeks I've been interviewing for the scholarship that I did that internship in Canada through, and since COVID all my job interviews have been online, so I just thought I would give you some useful tips that I found along the way and hopefully help you out. So I'm going to be splitting today's video into two parts. The first one being awareness of your body language, and the second being kind of appearance, setting up your space and all that kind of thing. So I'll put timestamps down below in the description. If you want to skip ahead or jump around, please feel free to do so. Awareness of body language and lack thereof. So it's kind of a given that it's harder to get yourself to come across well online or come across badly, to be honest. And generally people tend to have quite a neutral understanding of who you are because they can't feel your presence in person, they can't see you physically, so you can't do that normal kind of walk in, shake someone's hand, give them a nice big grin and then sit down, and they can't see what you're doing with your hands, all that stuff that normally is an indicator of someone's confidence or whatever online. In person they would be kind of put off by someone who is crossing their arms or twiddling their fingers nervously or twiddling their hair. I guess that is still something you need to be conscious of, but so in a normal non-COVID situation type interview you'd be able to make eye contact with someone, and that is something that I would definitely advise. If you're ever in a situation where you're in an interview, you should always be making eye contact as much as possible. It is a big confidence thing and a lot of people get nervous kind of looking at someone in the eye, which is totally understandable, but that's kind of taken away when you're doing your interviews through Skype, Zoom, Google Hangouts, Teams, whatever platform that you happen to be doing your interview on. So I'd say this is actually an advantage. You're not having to look someone in the eye first of all, which is something that you definitely have to get used to, and you know, if it's something that you're trying to practice, I would advise just try and make eye contact with people more in person when you're talking to them, just in general. Like if you're out for lunch with a friend, or you're talking to your mum, or you're in a discussion group at university, or you're in a work situation, just make eye contact with people. So I'd say that this is actually an advantage in these kind of virtual interview situations. You can't make eye contact with someone, so basically what you're going to be doing is looking at a screen. You can't make eye contact with the camera because then you're not watching them to kind of play off their facial expressions and what body language you can pick up through a screen. The one thing I would say is don't be distracted by your reflection. So don't stare at yourself being self-conscious about how you look, just be natural. Look at them and play off their reactions instead of worrying about your own or trying to look at the camera, because they're gonna know if what they're looking at is you, basically. So if you're kind of playing off their reactions instead of worrying about what your face is doing in a normal world situation, you can't see your face. Your face isn't right there in front of you, so you don't really know what's going on with your face, and it's kind of one thing off the table. Take it as an advantage, but make sure that you're still reacting in a normal way and try not to get distracted by your own face. Another thing I'd say is make sure you are looking at the screen still. They can't see whether I'm looking at them or not, and you kind of forget that they can still see where you're looking. I had a couple people that I interviewed and they were kind of very like, yeah, and I also play the... As an interviewer, you're not really sure if they're distracted by something else. It's off-putting as an interviewer to be like, hello, fighting for your attention. So just make sure you're looking at the screen. So the second part of this is appearance and setup. I think this is quite a big thing because there's a lot of things to consider that you normally wouldn't. Normally you're going into a place, you're going into someone else's environment. When you're in someone else's environment, all the factors that are around you aren't things that you have to control. But when you're in a virtual interview, you have to be thinking about the table setup, the lighting, can they see you through the camera, can they hear you okay? But there are advantages advantages to that as well. So my first tip is to find a desk or a table that allows your laptop or whatever it is that you're doing the interview on to catch you, so that your head to kind of your mid torso region are caught in the frame. And this is something to test ahead of time and maybe leave a couple of inches at the top of your head. But yeah, that's the height that you're aiming for, so look for that. This is the area that they'd kind of see if you were sitting at a table at an interview. Second thing, normally obvious but some people just don't think about it, is to make sure that your background isn't too cluttered, messy, distracting. It doesn't really matter if you're in your bedroom or in an office or in a kitchen. The main thing is just that you don't have a big pile of laundry behind you and you don't have kind of people walking past all the time. You need to make sure that it's kind of a quiet, designated space that's relatively tidy and not too loud or distracting. The next thing I'd say is to get a light set up behind whatever device you're doing the interview on. So you can get these really cheap ring lights on Amazon. I'd advise one of them because they've got different kind of degrees of light, unless you are blessed enough to have a table or a desk near a window, in which case I'd say use that. But whichever situation you end up in, just make sure there's good lighting. If you don't want to invest in a kind of small desk sized ring light, I would say a good idea is to get a lamp or something and just prop it on the table. Make sure the light is facing you so that you've got good exposure. They can see your face clearly and make out your facial expressions without too much trouble, because as I said, body language is a big part of doing well. And the last thing I'd say is see it as an advantage. You know, if you're at home and a lot of people use this, is that you can be dressed really smart from kind of the upper half of your body and your hair and your face and stuff, but you could be like wearing your comfies at the bottom, and I'm always wearing comfies at the bottom when I'm at home. So that's one thing that you've got to be happy about. The second thing is, if you're like me and you're always cold, you can get a blanket and put it around your chair like this. So I don't know if you can actually see that, but I've got a blanket that I put over my chair and it's huge, and it's kind of, I've got less of the material at the back and then loads at my front, and I'm a leg crosser. And when I say leg crosser, I don't mean like elegantly one leg over the other. I mean like sitting with my legs in a basket like I'm a 4-year-old. And I'll quite often sit in my chair with my legs in a basket and I'll just bring up all the extra blanket material and just prop it on top of me, and my bottom half is comfortable as anything, but the people on the other side of the screen have no idea, and it's brilliant. Shout out to my friend Mason who gave me the idea. It's just genius. And you know, you can have a cup of tea, whatever it is that you like, a beverage, non-alcoholic probably, at your desk. And it's just a home comfort that you can kind of be a bit more comfortable with the situation and not get too wrapped up in the pressure. I hope this was helpful in some way, and if it was, do let me know. You might want to watch my medical school interview tips, which I'll put here, and I've also got a playlist with all my medical school interview type videos in there, and I'll put that down here. In any case, thanks for watching and I hope you got something from this, and I'll see you next time.